All right, we're back at the dashboard. We've now successfully imported all the historical transactions for our accounts, and now we're ready to go and double check our work. So in this video, I'm going to take the Discover card as our example. And what we're looking to do here is when you import data into Zero, what's happening in the background is there's a balance for this card in the background, and it's every time you import a transaction it either is increased or it's decreased. And what we're going to do here is we're going to double check, does the balance on the credit card, the bank balance or the statement balance, is it correct? Does it match what's really in your bank account? And so how we're going to double check that is we're going to run what's called a reconciliation report. To do that, for each account, you go to the Manage button at the top right, and you'll click this reconciliation report. And what we're going to do is we're going to hover over and click on this second tab, which says Bank Statement. And what this is doing is it's giving us a time frame for a specific account from one date to the next. It's going to search, well, here's a list of all the transactions that were imported into Zero, whether those sources were automatically imported through a feed or if they were manually imported through a CSV file or any other type of file if there was a manual import. So the object of this exercise is we want to come to this screen, we want to launch this report, and we want to compare it to your actual bank statement. And so what I've done is I've logged into Discover and I have looked up all the statements. You should have some other similar feature within your particular bank or credit card account. You'll go and you look up the historical statements, and what I've gone and done is I've just downloaded the two most recent statements. And so I'm going to go and pull these up, and here we are. I pulled up my Discover statement, my most recent statement, and I've brought it side by side with our Zero account. And what we're ready to do now is we need to change these dates in Zero on the bank statement report, and we want it to match the dates on the statement from the credit card. So at the top we can see here each statement's a little bit different. Sometimes they only give you a closing date, so you kind of have to guess when the open date is. Sometimes they give you both. So in this case, I'm going to change the dates from September 10th. You can do that by typing in 9/10, and as long as it's in the year, if it's in the current year, you don't even have to put the year. You can put 9/10. And then the closing date, we want October 9th. So 10/9. I'll press Tab and I'll update. Click this Update button. And here we are. So sometimes it'll show off screen. So what I'll do is I'll click Wide View. And then sometimes I zoom out. You could just scroll, but for your case, I'm going to zoom out so that we don't have to do any scrolling. And the most important pieces of information are going to be this previous balance and the new balance. So what we want to do is, first of all, let's go ahead and analyze the ending balance. Did the card end most recently, so on October 9th, as of October 9th, did Zero match the bank statement from Discover? And when we look at it, we look at this closing balance as of October 9th, it looks like our balance is off. And this is on purpose, not to concern you. If it was correct, if it was the exact same amount, 2409, 2460, so if those were the same amount, then congratulations, there's no further work to done. This account is totally up to date, and you can now with confidence move forward knowing that you've imported everything correctly into Zero, and for this account. However, if the balances do not match, then that means there's an issue. And I've specifically made sure they didn't match so that I could help you troubleshoot it. So here's how the logic's going to go is we're going to start with the ending balances, and then if those don't match, then we're going to move to the beginning balance. So in this case, we look at the beginning balance and we realize 2156 doesn't match with 2207. So that's telling us, okay, there's some sort of issue that's predating this whole statement. So really the next option there is we need to go some time into the past. And what may make sense would be to go to the beginning of January. Did you even start off this year correctly? Or if you're just setting up your books, which you probably are, is your conversion balance right? So what I would probably do is I go in and change the date to January and check my conversion balance. Did I get that right? If you're confident that your conversion balance is right, what I'm going to do here is just go check the next statement. So I'll pull up my next statement, which is for 1 month before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my date. So from August 10th to September 9th. And so now I've plugged in my dates and I've clicked update. We can also see whether or not it's actually updated. When I look at it, what I notice is right off the bat, the closing balance doesn't match, which makes sense because the opening balance for October didn't match. But then when I go look at the opening balance, look at that, 225872, and the previous balance is 225872. So what that's telling us is there's some issue in this particular month, right? So if it started right but ended wrong, that means we've isolated the issue specifically to this month. If, however, the open balance didn't match, that means we need to go backwards some more and get something else correct. So I wanted to make it simple for us for this example, not going too far back, but that should be the logic is you start most recently and then you move back. You could move 1 month at a time, you can move a quarter at a time. You could also go all the way back to the conversion balance. However you want to do that, once you've isolated the issue, now it's time to analyze, well, what happened between the opening and the closing balance? And this example is going to be very basic because there's only a couple of transactions. Yours might be a little different, of course, because you may have dozens of transactions or maybe even hundreds. But the basic idea is since this is a like-for-like statement, so what we're going to do is on your credit card statement, go ahead and scroll down to where all your transactions are listed. Almost every statement will have their transactions listed. And for our example, only one transaction took place on September 8th. There was a $51 payment on the card. So when I look back over, it becomes pretty apparent. There's two $51 transactions. One was automatically imported, the other was manually imported. So it seems pretty clear here what was going on is when I manually imported, I forgot to delete one. And of course I did that on purpose, but the example still stands. That is a very reasonable mistake that could be made is you actually manually imported and there was overlap and you forgot to delete the overlap. So this is our one overlap that's left. And so what we're going to do here is you can actually go ahead and find whatever one you want to choose that you need to delete. There's a little, if you hover over it, there's a little arrow. You click View Statement. I'm going to go find the September 8th transaction for $51. And all we have to do is click it and then click Delete. And it says, generally, just like before, this is only required if it's a duplicate, and it is. Beautiful. Now what I want us to do is to go back to that statement, and you'll just run this reconciliation report. I'd almost recommend you, if you were going to delete a statement line, why don't you go ahead and right click that and open it in a new tab rather than keep it in the same tab, so you don't have to work your way back to this statement. But anyhow, whichever way you arrived at it, you're going to come back to this statement, run the same dates, and then refresh it. So with that being said, it looks here, if I go to the very top again, looks like we started off 225872, we end 220772, which says, awesome, we've identified the issue, the month started and ended correctly, and we successfully troubleshooted the statement error. So all that's really left is you need to run through that process for all of your accounts. And what this will do is, once you run this, you know your balance is up to date in all your accounts. That means we've successfully imported everything from conversion all the way to the present. Everything has been imported correctly, and we can have the confidence moving forward that if we need to do past bookkeeping or whatever we need to do, we're going to have everything we need, and you're going to get credit for all of the expenses that hit and revenues that hit your account. So all that to say is we've come a long way. So from the very beginning of setting up your Xero account to optimizing the settings, and then we created the bank feeds, and we started to import transactions automatically. Then we imported the historical transactions before the feed started, and now we've successfully verified the statement balances for all of our accounts are correct. And so basically your Xero account is a wrap, and what we're going to do is enter the last phase of the Xero setup, and that is simply to create and integrate the add-ons with Xero. So we'll see you on the other side.